New coaches, new faces in new places. And in some places, it's really worked out, and others, not so much. Let's start with the places where it hasn't worked out to this point. The AFC West is home to two new coaches, and so far, the results have not been good. The Broncos are 1-1. The Raiders are 0-2 and staring at a must-win game week 3 in Tennessee against a Titans team that also stands to be a little bit desperate. But let's start out with Denver. Let's start out with Nathaniel Hackett, who so far had the good fortune of playing against the Seattle Seahawks and the Houston Texans. Now, one would figure with Russell Wilson at the helm, that ought to be 2-0. Not the case. Denver is 1-1. They found a way to beat Houston at home, scoring 16 points for the second week in a row. This time it was enough. Houston could only manage 9. However, there are major problems, and they're not bubbling beneath the surface. They're at the surface. In fact, they're almost coming in like a tsunami of a wave over the surface, because Denver in 2 games has taken a combined 25 penalties. On Sunday at home against the Texans, they took 13 for a clean and even 100 yards. It was so bad at one point with all the pre-snap penalties that the crowd actually started audibly counting down the play clock for the offense. That's how bad it got. If you've ever seen that, please let me know when in the comments, because I never have. The Broncos fans actually had to help the Broncos snap the ball in their own building. There was another instance on 4th and 14 when Houston was getting ready to punt that the Broncos had to burn an important second half timeout. Why? Because the Broncos forgot to have a punt returner on the field. That actually happened. That's a thing. And so this is where we are with Denver. Russell Wilson, by the way, although he was victimized by some drops on Sunday, was largely terrible. 14 of 31 with a pick. That's not going to beat too many teams. Luckily for Denver, it did beat the Texans. The Texans are awful, probably a 4 or 5 win team at best. But it's not going to beat most teams. It certainly won't beat the San Francisco 49ers next weekend, who will come into Denver on Sunday Night Football with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. Hackett has looked unprepared. His team has looked overwhelmed and overmatched at times, playing 2 of the worst teams in the league. And yes, that 64-yard field goal, one of the most ridiculous decisions you've seen in many moons, but it doesn't feel like it's going to stop there anytime soon. Another call yesterday that went wild was Denver getting ready to kick a field goal, a long field goal, before it took a delay of game. Then they had to punt. This is where the Broncos are at right now. A team with some talent, not an overwhelming amount, coached by a man who's seemingly in over his head. Hackett has never been a head coach at any level, and it is showing. Now, with the Raiders, Josh McDaniels has been a head coach before. He had time in Denver. It did not last very long. It did not go very well. He lasted less than 2 seasons in his first go-round. But he went back to New England. He rehabbed his image, and he got another chance in the AFC West. And he's 0-2. A close loss to the Chargers, a decent result to be sure, not an easy game. The Chargers are one of the best teams in the league. Then they played the Cardinals, and they got up 20-0. And for all the world, it looked like the Raiders were about to be 1-1 and well on their way. And then the second half happened. And the Raiders still were up 23-7 halfway through the fourth quarter against a Cardinals team that for the first 6 quarters of the season looked like maybe the worst team in football after what was a very dysfunctional offseason. And then all of a sudden, Kyler Murray started running around, making a couple of throws. Derek Carr did nothing. The offense accounted for 3 points in the second half. And on the final play of regulation, the Cardinals tied the game, got the 2-point conversion, sent it to overtime. But then the Raiders got to stop. And they moved into what would have been a long field goal, but into field goal range nonetheless. And then they decided to throw the ball instead of just running it on first down. And Derek Carr almost threw an interception, but he didn't. Crisis averted. Second down, a throw to Hunter Renfrow, who 2 plays earlier had fumbled. He fumbled again. And Byron Murphy picked up the gift and ran 59 yards for a touchdown, 29-23 Arizona. And the Raiders are left at 0-2 and wondering what happened. They are already 2 games back at the Kansas City Chiefs. They are a game back at the Chargers and Broncos. And now they go and they play the Titans before they play the Broncos and then the Chiefs on Monday Night Football in Week 5. They could be buried if things don't turn around really quickly. And why should they? You look at the roster, they have 6 really good players. Derek Carr, Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, who, by the way, did nothing against Arizona, Darren Waller, and then the pass rushers of Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. And that's it. There's nobody else we're talking about on that roster, save for maybe Colton Miller and Denzel Perriman. That's as far as it goes. There's no depth, and there is no hope in Vegas if they can't figure out how to close out a team like Arizona when they're up 20 at home. And that, make no mistake, is on the players. You've got to execute. That's also on the coaching staff. There is no way that game should get away from you. Not once, not ever. And now the Raiders find themselves 0-2 in a division where 0-2 will leave you behind in a hurry. This is not the AFC South where you might win it with 8 games. This is the AFC West where it might take 13 wins to win the division. And if it's going to take that, well, then the Raiders, you can cross them off right now. If it's going to take 12, you can probably cross them off right now. I would surmise the Raiders are probably already fighting for a wild card berth. Good luck to them, because so far their coach seems a little bit in over his head. And at this point, the Raiders are already at a must win, and we're not even into October yet. Not a great sign in Vegas and in Denver. Yikes. Meanwhile, on the flip side of things, you look at some of the new coaches who are doing a good job, and you don't have to go far. You can say right in the AFC, Mike McDaniel getting it done with the Dolphins. Look, they get a week 1 win against the Pats. Ho-hum, fair enough, 20-7. The offense scored 13 points. Wasn't anything crazy. It was an efficient win. It was a solid game that everybody wanted to see, yours truly included. What was going to happen in Baltimore? Home opener for the Ravens, a really good team, a team I expect to be a double-digit win team. Didn't look good early. 28-7 in the second quarter, 35-14 Baltimore entering the fourth quarter. And for all the world, Tua was having a very mediocre day through a couple of early picks, had some yardage, but really nothing to write home about. And then the fourth quarter happened. Tyreek Hill happened. A 60-yard touchdown, 48-yard touchdown, a late game drive into the teeth of the defense on the road, and a touchdown throw to Jalen Waddle to win it 42-38 to his 6th touchdown pass of the afternoon. That is coming of age. That is getting it done. And Mike McDaniel has the belief of everybody in that room, and well, he should. That offense was a tire fire last year. They could not get anything going. They struggled to move the ball. Everything was a quick throw to Jalen Waddle, and if that didn't work, then they punted. That's the bottom line. That was the bottom line for a couple of years in Miami. It was drips and drabs and nothing else. Well, now all of a sudden, everything's working. The defense maybe needs to correct some things after the game in Baltimore, but the offense doesn't. The offense just needs to keep throwing at Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, because nobody can stop either one of them. And for all the doubters, Tua Tagovailoa looks pretty damn good through 2 games. We'll see if he can keep up what has been a torrid pace, and a pace that was, let's face it, yes, very much bolstered by one 15-minute period. But that's football. That's the way it goes. You can win and lose games in 15 minutes. The Dolphins won, and now they moved to 2-0, and they look like one of the better teams in a conference that everybody thinks is going to be a dogfight. You got to be pretty happy if you're a Miami fan. It looks like they found somebody in Mike McDaniel who can get the job done from an offensive standpoint. And in 2022, that's what matters most. Your defense has to be timely. Your defense has to get a few takeaways. But if the offense can move the ball and put up points, you're going to win a lot of football games. And in a year where everybody's saying, hey, this is it for Tua. If this doesn't work, this might be the end of the line for him in Miami. Somebody who they have famously tried to replace at times, Deshaun Watson last year, okay? Tom Brady for years. Tua's still there, and he's playing pretty damn well. And I think Mike McDaniel deserves a lot of credit. They now play the Bills and the Bengals the next 2 weeks. A couple of huge tests, especially Buffalo, but that game is in Miami. It's got to be the biggest game the Dolphins have played in a very long time. And let's not forget, in the NFC, there's another new head coach who deserves a lot of praise, and that's Brian Daboll. Look, the New York Giants are 2-0, and they're not going to win a Super Bowl. They may not even make the playoffs. They probably won't make the playoffs. They do not have a roster that is conducive to winning 10-plus games. But the Giants are playing their asses off, and they deserve a lot of credit for it. Daboll came in, having been the offensive coordinator with the Bills, where he helped to turn around Josh Allen's career. And while Daniel Jones has not done much early, he hasn't had to. The defense has played hard. It's been an aggressive group. It's been a unit that's really worked together under new defensive coordinator Wink Martindale, who's always going to blitz, and he's blitzed a lot. And you know what? It's worked. Baker Mayfield had an awful day against the Giants. completing less than half of his passes. The Panthers only got 16 points on the board. It wasn't enough. His former kicker for the Panthers, Graham Gano, now with the Giants, banged through a 50-plus yarder to win it in the Meadowland. Listen, again, the Giants are not going to be a big factor come January. That's not where they are yet. They're not in that stage of their development, but they are showing heart, they're showing fight, and they're showing some belief. And frankly, that's more than we've seen out of Big Blue in a hot second. They have not done any of those things. Joe Judge had them taking a knee, essentially, when they were quarterback sneaking their way out of their own end zone on 2nd and 3rd down in Week 18 last year against Washington. You won't see that out of this team. There's no quitting them. And that is a direct reflection of Brian Daboll. He's screaming, he's brooding, he's yelling, he's cajoling, he's doing whatever it takes on the sideline, but whatever it takes is working. The Giants are 2-0 after a road win in Tennessee, a home win against Carolina. Now they play on Monday Night Football in Week 3 against a Dallas team that is imminently beatable. And so who knows? Maybe the Giants will be 3-0 and one of the last undefeated teams standing, regardless of how it plays out in the win-loss column. And there will be plenty of losses coming. The Giants just don't have the talent to ward that off. You're seeing a team that is being rewarded for its character. And that's something that Brian Daboll should be really excited about going forward. If you can build a culture this year and get some talent in there in the offseason, the Giants might be well on their way. And again, that's something the Giants haven't been able to say in a decade. It's been a long, ugly 10 years in New York since they've last won a Super Bowl and really since they've been relevant. And now all of a sudden, there's at least a reason to turn on the game if you're a Giants fan and not be disgusted. And actually have a lot of hope moving forward. So far, we've seen some really bad coaching from new coaches. We've seen some really good coaching. Daboll and McDaniel getting the job done in their respective cities.